Dobrý den, vítejte v podcastu na Okružní, já jsem Klára Havlínová a dnes to bude v angličtině, takže si to dáme ještě jednou. Hello, welcome to the podcast at Okružní. Today I welcome here the director of Konfuciov's classroom in České Budějovice, Hao.
Yeah.
Hello, thank you for coming. And Czech director of Konfuciov's class, Monika Hrubá. Ahoj. Hello.
Ahoj, hi.
Thank you for coming. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure, definitely. So, yes, conveniently you can call me as Hao because it's my surname and it's easier for you guys to pronounce. And actually, my first name is Wenjun. It's quite difficult to pronounce, right? And so I'm an associate professor in Shanghai University of International Business and Economics. I used to be in charge of an international cooperation program between our university and the British university. And so that is the major reason why I was sent here to just to be in charge of this cooperative program. And here, as a Chinese director, I have my job descriptions, right, as what Monika has, right? We have our respective job descriptions. Mainly, I'm in charge of the curriculum design, syllabus design, teaching plan design. This is the first thing I'm in charge of. And the second thing I'm in charge of is the everyday running and the management of the classes and the workshops, right? And the third thing is that I'm trying to just build cooperations between VŠTE and SWIBI. SWIBI is the Chinese university I'm in. And I'm trying to just help promote the potential cooperations between VŠTE and some other Chinese universities. Actually, so I have helped VŠTE to establish a connection, right?
Yeah,
yes, with the Shanghai University, and hopefully, right, it will turn out good. And so the other thing I'm just in charge of is the human resources management and the making of the yearly budget planning and help with Monika with the final accounting of the budget and also arrange the education delegation and the summer camp for the students.
Yes.
Thank you. That's exhausting. And what about Monika? Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm supposed to be a Czech director for Konfuciov's classroom, but supposed to. Basically, we do everything. Our job descriptions on paper and job descriptions in real life are much more different.
Yes.
But we share every necessary daily task we have to do. Basically, from ordering every single papers to buying tickets. To driving everywhere, pick up stuff, teaching classes. Our teachers do everything. So we supposed to learn Chinese, which we do perfectly from the kids to the adults, and also the elder generation. And also we have the workshops for public, like cooking classes, calligraphy, Chinese painting, specific culture thing to introduce the Chinese culture, and also every single thing that's behind the tradition and culture.
The office of the Konfuciov's class is in the center of the city, not at the school, not at the university, but at the co-working. Do you like the place?
Definitely, absolutely, yes. It is the very ideal location for the Confucius classroom because obviously, ITB or VŠTE is just providing us with the best location ever, right? Because our students could come to the venue very conveniently, and it's beneficial for us to open the various workshops to the local adult students and to the local community. Yes, we do. I appreciate that.
Okay. And your office changed from VŠTE to co-working. What about it?
Well, I like it better right here. It's a nice new building, renovated by school, but everything is close. Since I'm spending a lot of time on insurance company and foreign police and stuff like that, it's more convenient to walk there from our office. Also for meetings with principals of high schools and other colleges, it's better for us to meet on the square. And also every visitor from the Chinese side for our competitions and stuff like that wants to see the square, wants to see the historical side of the city. So it's a better location
really
for
near.
us. Yeah.
And for how long are you? Is the Confucius class based in the co-working?
So actually, the Confucius classroom was unveiled in October 2022, right?
Yeah.
That is barely 2 years ago, right? But we actually have been running this program since March of 2022. So it has been over 2 years for the actual running of this program. Okay.
And it was the start of the Confucius class in the Czech Republic, or no?
So no, actually, so currently there are 4 Confucius institutes and classrooms, right? 2 Confucius institutes, one in Prague, another in Olomouc, and the third one, that is the Confucius classroom as we are, is in Ostrava. So we are the 4th, right?
Like the newest
And
one.
the newest one.
The youngest one,
the newest one and the rapidest developing one.
Yeah, we are the best.
Yes. So I have to admit we are doing our best to be the best. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember the start, the very first day when you met each other?
Oh yeah, right. Yes, at that time it was Mr. Kotaba. Yeah, Mr. Kotaba was the Czech director, and he's nice. He's a nice guy. The only regret is that he does not speak much English.
And that's why I was there.
And he needs Monika to work as an interpreter. And I noticed the first impression she gave me is that, wow, what a fabulous young lady, very smart, very responsive, and very well. Yeah.
That's the part I'm starting blushing every time.
That is the first impression I got, and very communicative. And that is the start of my trying to just persuade her to work with me.
So she didn't want to work at the Confucius class at the start?
Because she, to be fair, so Monika didn't understand what Confucius classroom is working for. And I think it's understandable. And later on, as we just met each other more, and as I introduced, and she understood that. So yes, there's something that she could do, right? There's a lot of things she could do
I
in this
didn't
program.
want to switch to positions between marketing and Confucius classroom, that's true. But after a few talks, I know that there's a lot of potential for a future. And they are amazing. The team is great. All the teachers, they are like a second family. So
yes,
it was a nice place eventually to end up.
And you have some Chinese colleagues, the Chinese teachers. How many of you are here in Czech Republic or in České Budějovice?
Here, just we have one, altogether we have 4, right? So including me, we have 4. We have one sponsored Chinese teacher, that is Tu Shu, you know her. Yes, she's been in Budapest for almost 8 years. Right?
She's almost Czech.
Yes, she came to Budapest in the year 2016 as a volunteer teacher. And currently we have 2 volunteer teachers. And starting from this September, we'll have 2 more volunteer teachers. And hopefully we'll have 1 more sponsored Chinese teacher arriving. So we're having a ever expanding team. And
your offices are in the co-working. How many offices do you have?
So we have just the whole floor, the whole first floor. We just occupy the whole first floor. And so sometimes when it's necessary, we also occupy the ground floor, the foyer, for the meeting room, and also the big classroom on the second floor. So I believe that so we are generously provided with the office facilities and the space.
And if somebody wants to come to the co-working and just ask for some courses or anything, is it possible to just come to the co-working?
Of course. We have office hours, so every day there's someone there. Basically, from the morning to the evening, someone always sitting there. And we have like wide selection of program, even like on a language side, or on the like culture and like making something art. Even Tai Chi classes for exercising.
And
what's Tai Chi? For
Tai
somebody
Chi.
who doesn't know.
Tai Chi, actually, it is a very, actually a physical exercise practiced by the Chinese people for more than 2,000 years, right? And people consider it as a very good way for their longevity and healthy lifestyle. So, good news is that, so though we are having a teacher, local teacher who's teaching Tai Chi, and good news is that starting from September, we'll have a new teacher. So, whose major is in Tai Chi. And she will be she will be teaching the local people to learn it, to practice it. It's just an exercise, like yoga.
It's not like fighting.
No, it's martial art. Fighting is martial art. It's Kung Fu, Chinese Kung Fu.
Oh, okay.
It's different. Tai Chi is just a physical exercise, while just Chinese Kung Fu is something like martial art. People are fighting each other. Right, it's a technique, different technique.
So they can learn Chinese language, Chinese culture, and also cooking.
Yeah, we have a dumpling class, our most popular class.
I have been there. It's great.
Oh yeah, you were there, right? I remember that.
Oh,
so
really
the start of this workshop is that we are considering that so food is the top priority for whatever people. Right?
Yeah, it connects people together.
It's the paramount just the pursuit of people. So and we are thinking that maybe it would be interesting for local people to learn something about the Chinese cooking, because Chinese dumpling is considered as the most popular, right, homemade food, right? So obviously it was a success.
And it's quite easy to make the dumplings.
It's easy. So do you think it's easy?
Yeah, I think so.
It's funny, right?
Have you tried since you came to our...
No, not at home, but at the class.
Yes,
so
right. Yes,
and
so we're happy that people are enjoying themselves, right?
Yeah, every time we open the dumpling class, it's booked out in 2 days. And we even have like children with parents coming for that kind of workshops. It's like a connection with public for us, because usually the Czech people tend to be a little stubborn to try new things. So this is like a first step to get to know us and like taste something from the Chinese culture. And when we have the people there in the office, it's easier to introduce our other programs, to show them what we are trying to do. So many of them after like visit other workshops on sign for language.
So apart from the dumpling making class workshop, we have 8 other cultural workshops, including Chinese painting, Chinese dance, right? For ladies, right?
Yeah,
you may
folk dance.
Try
nice.
Chinese folk dance. It's really nice. And also Chinese calligraphy, right? And Chinese knotting. People are just noting these bands very beautifully, right? And kite making and so forth. Altogether, 9 just workshops are opened to people regularly, right?
And what about Chinese language?
Oh,
how many students do you have?
So for Chinese language, actually, so we are opening Chinese language classes for different groups of
different
people.
levels.
They are just kindergarten, elementary school students, primary school, high school students of Czech Anglo High School and Townsend International School, and a few other local schools. And also, just we are offering the Chinese classes to VŠTE students and staff, and also we are offering the Chinese language classes to the local people. And I was amazed that there are some local people, no matter they are from different walks of life, and so they have been learning Chinese for quite a few years, and they could speak fluent Chinese, which amazed me really. And because, as they told me, right, so Chinese is just something they are interested in.
Yeah, they don't need it.
They
just love it.
They don't need it in their life, and they don't need it in their work. It's something that they really just want to cherish and learn, right? It is, right, amazing. Yeah.
And can you tell the Chinese language is difficult?
Yeah, to the beginners, it's a little bit. I think writing is the most difficult, and the pronunciation is not that difficult. And for the beginners, you may just start with the oral Chinese. You don't have learn to write things, right? And you may just pick up little by little. And the teachers have the very well prepared syllabus to teach the beginners to learn from scratch. So actually, for the Confucius classroom, Chinese language teaching is the basic object of our organization, but still we understand it's not easy for Czech people to learn Chinese, right? So we have just designed various syllabus and the curriculum and ask the teachers to just conduct the language teaching very carefully, step by step. I think it's not that easy to speak because Monika is learning Chinese, right? Can you say something about your experience?
Well, my Chinese isn't any good yet.
But you visit
But
your
I'm
classroom.
trying. Yeah, every week I'm trying.
Every week, wow.
Oh, yeah, we have it with the rector every Wednesday in the morning with Tushu. Yeah.
Nice. Private lessons.
The idea is on the next board meeting in Shanghai to introduce ourselves in Chinese. That's the goal.
Yeah,
that's why.
Difficult.
No, I suppose it taught me it's correct to learn the language because since it's a majority of people in the office and we are teaching the Chinese, I think it's right to understand the language and the background. And yes, as Mrs. Hao told us that we set the design of the classes for people's needs. So basically, if you have Chinese partner and you want to learn some phrases, you can tell us. If you want to learn specific things, the classes will be designed accordingly to your needs.
Yeah,
so every class is different. And the teachers always try to make it personal because we need people get to know us better. We want them to come back always. That's why we want them to be always happy and satisfied. That's why we try our best to adjust the classes.
That's nice.
Yes, the teachers are capable of adjusting their classes according to the particular needs of the students, right? So I think which is really great. And as what Monika told you just now, so Chinese as the most widely spoken language worldwide. It is spoken by 1.4 billion people. Oh no, 1.6 billion people worldwide, right? So I think it's great that so if you could pick up a little bit about this language.
Yeah. Even it's not just about language; it's about culture side of things because there's a huge contrast between Chinese and Czech in personal life, in business meetings. Everything is a little bit different, so it's always come handy that you know the differences.
And are there many citizens of China in České Budějovice or in Czech Republic? Do you know some Chinese people in České Budějovice?
Actually, so not from the very beginning. So gradually, I only knew a few Chinese families who are just restaurant owners here, and they send their kids to our Confucius classrooms, and these kids are I should say they are very lucky to have us, so that they could not only learn the Chinese languages, but also the rich cultural workshops they can just learn from our Confucius classroom. Otherwise, in the other places throughout Czech Republic, so the other Confucius institutes and the Confucius classroom do not offer this kind of classes to the kids.
Yeah.
So these kids are lucky, right?
Yeah, and the events are really, really nice. I was with my kids at the coworking, I think, celebration of the Chinese New Year, and it was really nice.
It's lovely, right? Yes, you're welcome to take your kids, to take your boy here. And so regularly we are holding just cultural events, right?
Yeah, through the year we try to do the separate events.
Yeah. Okay.
And I also visited the competition of Chinese bridge, and I was surprised how many students or Czech people knows Chinese very well, and they just told the poetry in Chinese or something.
Yes,
and it was
right.
really
That's
nice.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yes. You know, I'm also just pleasantly surprised, at the very beginning, at the numbers of Czech students and even Czech adult students, right? And even in Prague every year, so there's a Chinese bridge competition for the high school students and the primary school students. And I can see that, I can very clearly see that, the higher or the more educated the parents are, right, they attach more importance on the learning of their kids learning Chinese, right? So obviously, it's just people are just realizing that maybe it's not bad for their kids to learn some Chinese.
Yeah.
I hope you can send your kids to our classroom
Oh,
sometime. If they're interested.
They just started with English and
First,
it's really
I
difficult
understand.
for them.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. And what about Czech people in general? How we are?
Yes, Czech people, yes. I have a lot to say, right? So, obviously, just to make a contrast, just the Czech people look quite reserved at the very beginning.
Really? Czech people?
You're nice, right? You're nice people and just friendly but distant.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a sharp contrast. For example, Monika went to China last year, and you will notice when you go to China, the Chinese people are very friendly, but they are just trying. They are very close, right? They are trying to they're ready to make friends very easily. And I have found myself not easy to make friends with local people, apart from you guys. But as time goes by, I can see that the Czech people are. They are very nice, right? Once they recognize you, they tend to be very, very loyal friends, right? Which I appreciate very much.
And what about Chinese people?
Well, for me, the most amazing thing is how open they are. They are honest. That's the quality I appreciate a lot, because some of the Czech people doesn't have this much quality, even on the workplace, even in real life. Do you have sometimes hard to say what you think?
Yeah.
It's not like that in Chinese. They say everything that comes in mind. They are open. They are trying to always... Yeah, straightforward. That's the word. Thank you. They always say everything honestly, and it can be really great quality. Also really for us, it can be oh, okay. A lot of information at once. Yeah. But once you get used to it, it's really fresh.
It's a very interesting contrast, but you know, my first impression, the biggest difference when we are talking about it is that actually I appreciate Czech people's enjoyment of life. Yes, because you enjoy your life more than we do.
You always work.
Yes. It's, for Chinese, especially over the past 30 to 40 years, right? Chinese people have been too much used to working very, very hard.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't know weekends, for example.
And we tend to forget what is the real purpose of life. So this is what I appreciate and what I admire from the Czech people, and this is what I should learn myself.
Yeah. Do you work during weekends also?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Right, year round. There's no weekends, right?
Yeah, you don't have a weekend.
I don't have weekend, right? Because of the time difference between Czech Republic and China. So normally starting from the very early hours in the morning, I have to contact my home university and then maybe starting from noon I come to office, right, and then just to deal with the daily work. So I think for me all work, no play.
The Czech people like the weekends and all
yes,
the
you do,
vacations
and I
everything.
appreciate that, right? You should, and we should. And I have become more relaxed since
I'm trying to teach them a little bit.
Yes, I have learned to enjoy my life more.
Well, otherwise I have to keep with them, and it's not bearable for a long time.
Yes, right. So Monika is a perfect team leader, right? And I consider myself as very fortunate to have her as my partner, because we always have hold the same mind, and I have always find myself being supported by her, and being she's at my back, right? And she's the person who is coordinating between the Chinese staff, Chinese team, and the Czech party, right? So I know that on some occasions she's under stress and under pressure, but luckily she's doing her job amazingly well.
Thank you.
Okay.
And for how long do you plan to spend in Czech Republic?
Yes, I wish I could stay as long as I could.
Yeah, we
You
talk
know?
about it actually not
Yes,
so
right.
long. Yeah.
Actually, so I arrived in Czech Republic since 2022, and this is my second term. You know, for each term it's 2-year contract, and this is my second term, and I wish there is a third term.
Yeah, same.
And I am told that because there's a Chinese regulation, right? The longest, the longest time I could serve my position is maybe 6 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
After that, they have to come back.
Yeah, we have to go
It's
back.
just some regulation from China?
Yes, yes,
Chinese
because for
side.
Chinese directors, right, and also for sponsored Chinese
Yeah,
teachers.
they have
right?
different times, but
Yeah.
every single one of them have certain time they have to spend.
Yeah.
And after that, I'm gonna have to say goodbye.
But you will return now. After some,
Yes,
you can
but
return.
yeah, but my stay in Czech Republic will be my most cherished memories in my future. But I have to say, I enjoy myself here currently.
That's good.
And is it possible that they will send another Chinese director from your university in Shanghai? Or
Yes,
some
yes.
of your colleagues?
After me, so definitely there will be a new person selected, right? Every Chinese director is selected through a very complicated procedure. And even the sponsored Chinese teachers and volunteer teachers, they are also selected very, very carefully.
Yeah, there's
and
so much paperwork.
they have to sit for the written exams, interviews, and several rounds of interviews before they could be selected, right? So that's the reason why we are very confident that we have a very good teaching resources. Okay.
And do you think it's a big bureaucracy or it's normal system in China?
Sorry.
Do you think it's too much paperwork for one person to come here, or is it normal in China?
Yeah, yes, we have a whole team. We are supported by a whole team in our university. It's not me alone to do the paperwork. So we are the final step of the work of the process. So actually, the university staff has gone through the different procedures. They have done most of the job,
And they will inform us about the outcome.
yeah, yes, and so actually for us, right? So our job starts since the teachers are sent here,
Yeah.
right?
And do you miss China?
Yes, I do. But I'm a traveler. I travel a lot, right? I enjoy myself traveling around, and so I don't miss that much. I only miss my parents who are old, right? Yes.
And where have you been around the world?
Just except for South America, and except for Africa. So and then I went to almost most majority of the other countries, right? The other continents, right?
Oh, it's nice. So your university in Shanghai allow you to travel a lot?
Actually,
business?
no, not business travels. No, most of the travels are done during my vacation. When I was in China, right? So we had the summer vacation, winter vacation, which adds up to about 3 months each year.
Oh, it's a long
so
time.
it gives me a lot of time, and also in the past, my husband, not she, sorry. It's a stupid mistake. He just travels a lot for business trips. So it gives me some convenience for me to accompany him and to travel around with him.
That was another thing we have to used to, because I don't have 3 months of vacation. So I try to coordinate the girls in the office like a little bit, because people might think that we like closing the office for 2 months. It's too much. So that's why we just have to adjust the vacation. That's why maybe from the beginning they don't like me that much, because I was a little bit stubborn about that.
I'm sorry for the trouble caused to
okay.
you, right? Because it's the difference, the difference of the work time, because it's normal. It's normal in China that just people working in universities, right? Not only the teachers but also the staff, right? To enjoy 3 months vacation.
It's 3 months really a lot.
Each year.
So
right.
you don't work so much. You have 3 months.
Well, if you compare, just imagine that you are working like 5 months all the time,
all the time.
basically.
Oh,
Just imagine that.
And then you have 2
okay.
months over the
Yeah,
summer.
yeah,
I
I
wouldn't
understand.
switch. Like for me,
I
5
understand.
days and a weekend, it's better
Yeah.
than 2
Yeah,
months.
that's right, that's
Because sometimes, I don't mean it in a bad way,
I
but
understand.
sometimes email at 10 o'clock in the evening from someone on Saturday who needs something,
Yeah.
it's really like, I was like, okay.
Yeah, we are not used to it.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
you know,
we find a compromise eventually.
Yes, thank you so much for your just trying so hard to compromise between the differences among the work hours, right? So yes, we are under very heavy workload back in China, and there's such a thing as 996. So I believe you have never heard of a 996. Well, 996 means, right, so every day, just what? You work from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock
Yeah.
at
12
night.
hours.
Yeah, and then just you work 6 days a week. That's 996.
Oh,
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, nice.
it's normal working week in,
It's
in
normal.
China.
It's
Really?
normal, yeah, okay, especially in companies, right?
Okay.
Especially in companies.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, to some extent, it explains why China has been developing so fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Yes,
1 billion people working 6 days.
yes,
Yeah.
that's shocking.
It's
right?
impressive.
That's shocking to the rest of the world, and I totally understand how you Westerners are thinking of the Chinese people. These people are like working machines, right?
Yeah, well, I think for us, we wouldn't be able to work that hard. Like, we are not used to it, so it's surprising
you guys
for
are
us.
very fortunate enough to enjoy a very highly developed society and enjoy very good social welfare, and you are just secured in every aspect of your life from your childhood on, right? But China, as a developing country, so we are starting from scratch, right? And we have to work very, very hard to what? To secure a better life for ourselves. Though, right, currently the government has just what? Guaranteed much, much better just what? Social welfare. Still, we have to work hard to earn it.
And your vacation will start soon, summer vacation.
Yeah, sure,
So do
definitely. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and do you plan some traveling or something?
Yes, right. So first of all, I'm sorry, Monica, I have to go back. I know I gave you 2 days post, right, in the summer. And I have to just, I have to travel a lot. I'm back in China. And also I have to travel to America, right, yes, because my niece is going to University of Pennsylvania, right. I'm attending her just opening ceremony, right. And also, you know, my daughter and husband are living in Canada. I'm going back to Canada to visit them. Just you see a lot of work travel.
Yeah. It's difficult now to live separately from your daughter.
As a mom, it's difficult. But for my daughter, I think she enjoys herself. As a teenager, you know, teenagers do not like moms to be what? Pilot parent, right? Yeah, okay. But to me, right, so sometimes I feel just upset, right, to be so far away from my daughter, right? And, you know, the truth is, right, I used to just ask her whether or not she would like to just to be transferred to Czech Republic, because I know there are also very good international schools, but she is reluctant to be relocated here because she cannot leave her friends, because at her age, friends and classmates are more important than a mama.
Well, but it should be difficult.
Yes, it's difficult.
I
yes.
can't imagine.
And I understand that to you guys, you must think it very strange for a woman, middle-aged woman who's living alone and just leaving her husband and child behind. But it's normal for us.
So your daughter is half Chinese or Chinese from both sides?
It's Chinese from both
so
sides.
Also Chinese.
My husband actually is a Chinese Canadian, right?
And what do you like Canada? Do you visit Canada often?
I do. I like the lifestyle. It's similar to Czech Republic. Yes, I'm looking forward to my retirement age, when I can go to Canada.
After.
Definitely, you're welcome. You're welcome to my home. Okay.
I've never been to Canada. It's
really?
Really a
It's a
beautiful
vast country. It's a vast country, and the weather is not so good, especially in winter times, right? Yes, people are complaining about the winter. Apart from that, it's nice. It's rich in natural resources, right? It has, people are enjoying a very high living standard as what you do here. Yes, I think I like that. That's the reason why I'm sending my daughter to Canada.
And what about your visit in China last year? What about it?
Impressive and really fast. That's like the two words that describe it perfectly.
We didn't have time to sleep.
Well, we slept a little bit, but it's a huge difference from the Czech Republic. Like, for example, the people, like, I'm the person who likes, how do you say it? Your privacy, your space. Yeah. And like, I need my space. In China, there's no space.
Yes.
But I was really nervous about that. We talked about it a lot. Yeah. I was a lot of nervous, but the people are polite. They're understanding. There's a lot of them in one place, but like always pay attention. Everybody are careful. So in the end, I felt better in Shanghai than I felt like in Iggy, for example, because we don't do that much attention. We don't pay that much attention. We don't care if someone falls. Everybody will just like walk over it, and no one will help him. In China, no one's gonna rob you. It's not gonna happen.
Yes, the social security is highly appreciated, right? So
I felt safe.
You don't have to worry anything about just being robbed or being just stolen or something like that. No, there's no such cases.
How is it
there's
possible?
no such right, because
there
are always
the cameras.
Also many cameras, right? Where you
it's
go.
secure, but always like even though they understand you. Because many Chinese don't speak English that perfectly.
No, they don't, especially people at older ages.
Yeah, but they try to help. Like, for example, we went out for like food or something. I didn't speak Chinese. We have Google Translator with us. And they helped us. Every single time they will show you, they will try to help you. Their hospitality and friendliness, it's insane. For like Czech people, it's not normal, but it's really like refreshingly safe.
And do you plan to return to China this year?
Yeah, I'm going twice this year, actually.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we have education delegation, and then I have like training program for directors. I'm going alone. I'm going to be scared again.
Alone?
Yeah. Only for the training program for directors, right?
Yes.
Okay. And speaking of education delegation, so actually this is something we are offering to our Czech partner schools, especially just for example, this year we are organizing this delegation and hopefully the rector himself will be included in this delegation, and also some other leadership from the school, and also the principals and the headmasters of the local schools. They will be just warmly invited into this delegation, and so the Chinese party just to cover all the expenses. I think it's a very good chance for the principals and the headmasters to see with their own eyes, right? What is going on in China? How are the Chinese universities and the schools are running? I know that last year you were amazed by the kindergarten and the universities, right?
Yeah, Monika told me that they were cleaning.
Well, the organization is insane. Like 4,000 children at one place, and everything is work perfectly fine. Like, it's insane. It was insane to watch how perfectly behaved they were, and also the teachers, they knew exactly what to do. Everything has the certain role, and they keep up with it. Like, you just stood there, I was like, wow, okay.
Do you think the Czech kids are not so well behaved like Chinese children?
They are very well behaved, just we had the Chinese workshops here in the kindergarten. So these kids are very lovely, very cute and lovely, and very cooperative. Yes, the kids are the same. Kids are similar.
The problem is in the grown-ups.
Yes, kids are similar, I think, and because, to our Chinese eyes, right, all Czech kids look so lovely, like angels, right? Yes, angels. Right, so cute, right?
Okay,
but I would like to say that we offer the travel to China for our students also.
Oh, summer camp, yes.
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna promote us a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay, it's definitely worth mentioning, would you please?
Yeah, we if you sign up for our Chinese language classes, which are free for students, and you will sign up for Chinese SHK, right? Exam.
Yeah, HSK. Yeah.
And you will like do the basic level. It's really simple, basic
very,
level.
Very simple.
Then we can send you to China for free.
Oh.
2 weeks.
2 weeks in China
yeah.
for free.
So this is
wow.
This is a very, very weird times. You know, last year just watch. So last year was the first year we were trying to organize it, but the regret is that we didn't have this. The students didn't have time to pass the HSK test. But this year, just we are trying to promote it. And this year there are 2 students, 2 of our students will go for the summer camp. And hopefully, starting from next year, so we hope that more and more our students could just take advantage of this rare chance to visit China, and everything will be covered, and all the activities and the visits, right, and programs, right, events, right, everything will be covered. Oh, the only exception is that the students have to pay for their flight tickets. That's the only thing they have to pay for, and the visa.
It's
and it's difficult to get the visa.
It's very simple.
Yeah, we are going to help with everything. It's
we
fine.
will help with the students getting the visa. So now, as they could, for those students who are interested in taking part in the summer camp, we highly encourage them to just to register in our Chinese language class. There's a beginners class. Right,
and that's completely fine, and it's enough.
Yes, people, just the students can learn from the very, very beginning, and then at the beginning of maybe just the next January or February, students are taking the HSK1 exam. That is very, very easy. Every student can pass it, and then they have this they are just entitled to take part in the summer camp. And for this year, only 2 students just registered for the summer camp. We feel sorry that there are so few students. Maybe we need to do more promotions.
Yes,
maybe
that's
not
why
so
I'm going to use
students.
her time just a little bit.
Maybe not so many of our students know about this program. So and just it's the language class is totally free. And just we have a very highly qualified teachers, right? And just so nice they just take part in or just learn Chinese, right, from our teachers regularly, and then just pass the HSK1 test, and then next summer they are entitled to go to China, to visit China.
But maybe they are scared to go to China for 2 weeks for themselves.
Maybe too long.
Well, we even have a chaperone who speaks Czech, and
so
she can accompany them.
Yeah, we have a Czech chaperone. Yes, right.
So they are not going to be alone.
One is our staff, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, the organizers of these summer camps are very, very experienced because they have been organizing these summer camps for more than just 20 years or something. So people don't have to worry anything about
it's like a free vacation,
food, accommodation, right?
So they won't get lost in China alone.
No, never, never. But I suppose they would rather get lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the program is very fast.
It's very welcoming program, and we would highly encourage our students to take advantage of us, right? Yes, it's a huge advantage that they could take from Confucius classroom.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Do you have any plans or anything what you want to share with our audience? Plans for next year or school year?
Yeah, for next year, right. So, you know, me and Monika, and also the leadership from the both sides, we are trying our best to upgrade ourselves into a Confucius Institute sometime next year. So this is the plan we are holding, right?
Yeah, that's the focus.
Yeah, the focus of for next semester, right? So and hopefully, we wish that if students or people are interested, you're welcome anytime, right? And we can just watch. There's always somebody there who can explain to you what we are having, what we are doing, and what they can get from us. And
and we have active all of the social media. We have working websites where you can see all the previous competitions and events, and also you can register for all the classes. For the summer, we have summer camps for kids.
For local kids, right?
Yeah, so we are gonna have 2 weeks of program from 4 years to 15, and there's like visits to Krumlov and Hluboká and stuff like that. It's gonna be amazing for the kids, and we are gonna publish our first book this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
About,
we
Confucius
made
class?
a Czech/Chinese fairy tale for children. It's gonna be made completely and draw by our children. They draw every single illustration.
Right, yeah.
So we decided to put together a little fairy tale.
It will be a cherished gift for the Chinese world, for the Chinese leadership, right? When the education delegation just will visit China this year, right? Yeah.
So they will learn Czech from the book.
Yes, right. Hopefully, right.
I don't think
yes,
so.
I have to admit that it's not easy, right, for people to start with, especially for Czech people. I know that sometimes you feel a little bit scary to just to learn something new or to pick up something new, right?
Yeah.
Yes, right. Just maybe step ahead, and you will find that there's a very big world out there for you to experience, right? Totally different world.
Yeah, and everybody can visit the dumpling class. And
Sure, and not only
best
dumpling
start.
classes, but also calligraphy, Chinese painting, Chinese dance.
Yeah, I think that the
martial
dance
art.
and the painting are really
Yeah, they're
something.
also popular.
Yeah.
Chinese calligraphy and Chinese painting, and also the tea art show. Yeah, you experienced it, right?
I
Yes, right. Our
experienced
Chinese
almost
teacher,
everything.
right? And that's wonderful, right? And also Tai Chi exercise and martial art, right? The boys are really interested in that, right? Yes.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so thank you very much for coming, and good luck next year with the Confucius Institute and everything.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for your time, right?
Thank
I
you.
do appreciate, right?
Thank you, and bye.
Bye. Mhm.